In this presentation, I will be sharing my reflections on the material given in the Global Economic Environment module. Thomas Piketty is a French economist whose work focuses on wealth and income inequality. His theory of inequality is based on his formula R greater than G, where R is the rate of return of capital and G is the economy's growth. This relationship of R being greater than G leads to a high concentration of wealth. When the gap between R and G increases, the higher the level of wealth inequality distribution. I think his relation is too vague, does not take into consideration for the analysis of an economy other very important factors such as taxes, population, age, unemployment rate, etc. The most important thing Piketty has achieved with his theory is inequality to being admitted to study in the academies as an important factor and being tackled by the professional economists. Inequality of wealth is one of the fuels that feed capitalism and the economy as we know it. This topic we will look into it in future slides in resource stress. Here are some graphs with the evolution of income inequality in the US and Anglo-Saxon countries, and the wealth distribution in the US in the hands of the 1% of the population. KPMG's Future State 2030 report is quoting KMPG, is the first in a series of important conversations that we want to have with government organizations over the next few years. These pages identify 9 global megatrends that are most salient to the future of governments. While their individual impacts will be far-reaching, the trends are highly interrelated and thus demand a combined and coordinated set of responses. These 9 megatrends identified would be demographics, rise of the individual, enabling technology, climate change, resource stress, urbanization, economic interconnectedness, public debt and economic power shift. These megatrends are classified in 3 major categories that are interrelated as we can see on the slide: individuals, physical environment and global economy. The megatrends that I would like to address, and that I think are the most important, will be demographics, economic interconnectedness, climate change and resource stress. The aging of the population will be the key issue to tackle in the future. With a higher life expectation, a decrease in birth rates, world population is getting older. This aging population will give a result the increase in healthcare costs, pension systems and young bulge problem in developing countries. Governments will have to try to find the formula on how to balance out these problems. I think the solutions will come in the form of policies or subsidies to help increase birth rates, policies to help young adults enter the labor market and stability once in it, increase in the age of retirement, and unfortunately an increase in private healthcare policies. In the image we can see how the old age dependency ratio for the year 2030 will affect in a greater manner developed countries. The future for global trade, as we can see on the slide, is very bright. Global trade will continue to increase in a projected 5% annually through to the year 2030. This is why trade and investments will continue to grow. There will be a higher complexity in trade and investment relationships, a decline in trading barriers, and finally, greater risk of contagion event. Due to the increase in global trade, I think different regions will specialize. Every region will end up with a specific role that will help the global wheel of trade continue to spin. Trade agreements will be reassessed for the better due to the fear of losing markets, and inequality between developed and developing countries will increase, making undeveloped and developing countries very sensible to market fluctuations. In this slide, we can observe the participation in regional trade agreements of the different countries. The consequences of the climate change result in unpredictable, dramatic impacts on ecosystems, pressure to adapt to locked-in effects of global warming, challenge to global cooperation and greater role for cities. Energy consumption and how this energy is produced are the biggest concerns for future climate change. With CO2 emission higher than emission goal levels required for 2020, and with countries not taking serious actions, the impact it will have over the weather, The melting the ice caps and the impact on animal species and humans will be higher than expected. Governments should take serious action in investing in cleaner energy production systems and water supply technologies for a better distribution. This would help mitigate CO2 emissions and desertification. We can observe the projected CO2 emission in 2030, which I hope are wrong and are much higher than reality in that year. Resource stresses, in my opinion, will have one of the most important issues to tackle. With the increase of the world's population and its middle class, food production and water supply, energy demands rising, competition of minerals and metals, and an increase in resource nationalism will be very challenging. Resources are limited, and even though technological advancements may help us mitigate food and energy productions or water scarcity, a change in the way people live is needed. If everybody in the world were to live as the average Australian citizen, we would need 5.2 Earths, and we only have one. So unless people change their needs and we are able to live with less material things, cell phones, cloths, etc., the actual system will reach a dead end. Thank you for your attention and hope you have enjoyed it.